people just assume that if you take drugs and you party, obviously you're going to go and get HIV.
When I was diagnosed in 2001, it was no surprise. It wasn't a surprise. But what it did do was it hit me so hard because I was dying. It was a reality. It wasn't like, oh, I was walking down the road and thought, oh, I don't have a HIV test. I was found unconscious in my house, taken to St. Stephen's, which is a really amazing hospice in London, next to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. I was taken there, diagnosed on the spot, put straight into isolation within the hour. And then that's when it progressively got worse. It got worse. The minute I knew, it seemed like I was knocked over and dragged along by the train, because suddenly it became real. It was no longer guessing games or me blaming it on drugs. You got to remember, I had a parallel world going on here. I had full-blown addiction, right? And I mean full-blown addiction.
Well, you were pulling your teeth out with screwdrivers.
No, I was gone. And then on the other hand, I was, my body had no immune system. It had gone. So me thinking that I had meth mouth from just smoking crystal meth, I had meth mouth because I had no immune system to fight it off. So when I was diagnosed, they put me into isolation, and then they found out that my viral load was in the multi-millions. It was so high, and that it got into my brain, and I had to keep having lumbar punctures every day. And then my brain started to swell, and that is why I was passing out. I kept thinking I was passing out because I'd done too many drugs.
And hadn't slept.
Yeah. I was passing out because my brain had swollen. So then I was in an induced coma, which I know nothing of, until they came round. And the minute I came round, the first thing on my mind was drugs. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm alive.
No.
Thank God.
Yeah, I read that there's a whole bit in the book where you go out to have a cigarette on the street, but you're going out to actually meet your dealer, and you can't get hold of them, and then your friend happens to walk down the street, and you say to her, have you got anything on you? And she goes, here, and gives you a number for AA.
She put a 12-step key ring in my hand, a Welcome to Narcotics Anonymous key ring. And I was like, looked at it and I just thought, what the fuck is that? Fuck off. That's no use to me.
But for all rights, Tony, I mean, when you sit now, you really shouldn't be here. And yet you are.
I'm here because, I had this conversation yesterday. Why am I still here? I'm here because there's a part of me that I love life. And that part of me that my soul wouldn't let go. It's been, there's something in me that will always fight to survive. When I was in my darkest days of addiction for 28 years, I knew how to survive. There was something in me that kept me alive. Because the amount of times that I should have been dead, my body had given up, and then to be given that second chance by doing trial drugs and going on those clinical trials, they saved my life.
Do you, because now I know, as we said, we're celebrating for you 15 and a half years of sobriety. You are a sponsor to a lot of people in recovery. You do a lot of fantastic work about supporting people in their recovery and talking about it. And obviously the book and all the press you're doing at the moment only helps amplify that. But just talking about that spark, that little tiny spark that kind of kept flickering even in your darkest days, is that something you refer to when you talk to people, or people come and say, I want to get out of this situation? Is that sort of something you try to help them navigate to find within themselves?
Yeah, 100%. Because you know what? The minute that someone comes to you and actually says to you, I need help, that pilot light's already on. That's on. You can see it flickering in the back of the eyes. There's nothing more rewarding in life than seeing the lights come back on in somebody's eyes. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line where they haven't had a drink or a drug, and they're starting to shift, and the lights come back on. You can see the sparkle back in people's eyes, and that's the zest for life. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, is just seeing someone go from complete and utter annihilation of actually, asking for help. You know, when they get that gift of desperation, it is really a gift of desperation. That moment that they can actually ask for help. It's not an easy thing. It's probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do, is to actually open your mouth and say, I've got a drug problem, I really need help. Our ego, which comes from a place of fear, will not allow us to say, I'm a fucking mess. You know what I mean? Because we'll surround ourselves with people that make it okay to be that mess.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, a lot of people still think addiction is just a choice for people. Oh, you should just stop. It's not. It is an actual illness. It's an actual illness. And also, a lot of it can stem from trauma, and the fact that, I've had this conversation with people like Alan Cumming and Billy Porter who've been on the show, and we talk about how trauma in of itself is a drug. And we get so used to it, don't we? For those of us, like you mentioned you're a victim of sexual abuse. I am too, and horrible shit that went down in my life, and hence why I've turned to drugs and done stupid shit as well in the past. But it's almost like when you start to figure out the trauma and you start to deal with it, and you can get rid of it, I became like, how do I survive now? I almost thrived on that trauma to keep me going. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. We live on a drama triangle, and when we're on that triangle, everything is a drama. Everything. Getting across town's a drama. This is a drama. Every phone call you're on's a drama, and that's when we're in that zone where nothing will run smoothly, because we thrive off of it. We get high off of it, and it's that whole like, oh my God, and when I was like at the end of my using, I used to listen to Mary J. Blige's No More Drama track day in, day out, because I was so over the drama. I was so spiritually, emotionally, physically bankrupt. Everything had gone. And, all I had was drama. Do you know what I mean? And I was so exhausted by it. And, it's not till you get to this point in your life where you think, like, I give anything to be drama-free some days. Just like, I just want to stay at home with my when Taylor was here, my dog, my boyfriend now, and that for me is the perfect day. I don't need to be surrounded by drama, but we do. It's like anything that changes the way we feel, whether it be good or bad, we can be addicted to. Work is another one. I always say this. People think that addicts and alcoholics always end up on the street or on a park bench. They do. Some of them do, but the other ones are far worse. The ones that work 24 hours a day, don't know how to do it, don't realize that they're addicts. Completely running on ego and fueling their own egos. They're the ones that are really in danger. And they're the ones that will walk past a homeless person on the street and look down their nose at them. And I always say, don't look down your nose and pass judgment on that person, because that person might be the one that helps to save your son or your daughter's life. That helpless addict on the street one day will get clean and could save your child's life. Just remember that. And I just think that it's in all of us. As a kid, I didn't stand a chance. I was always an addict. I come from a long, long family. It's an inherited disease. Addiction isn't something that you go to the shop and you buy. It's in us. We're born with it. It's how it's sparked and what avenues do we go down. A lot of people have addictive personality and go down really healthy routes, and then suddenly they'll be addicted to the gym. They have to do every day. If they don't go to the gym, they hate themselves.
Yeah.
They're addicted to, we get addicted to buying clothes. We get addicted to buying everything. It's not always a negative. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, listen, the book is called I Don't Take Requests. Yeah. DJ Fat Tony, one of the few people in the world who have told Madonna to fuck off. We don't have enough time to tell that story, but...
You have to buy the book for that one.
You got to buy the book for that one. DJ Fat Tony, congratulations on your success, on the ongoing work you're doing. Thank you for what you do for our community and for those of us living with HIV too. It means a lot. Thank you, DJ Fat Tony.
God bless.